Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey. And for those of you listening, not watching on YouTube, I got rid of the beard and mustache. I'm not a big fan of it. The younger women like it, and even some of the middle-aged women. Some, but we'll see. It's just I don't know if I like it, So we'll see if I grow it back. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. I'm not drinking whiskey. I might be brewing up some tea for two reasons. The first, I rediscovered video games. It's been quite a while since I played any, and then next thing I know, it was 1:30 a.m. when I finished the entire game I started yesterday. So I went to bed, and now I could use a little energy boost. And two, playing on some stereotypes here, I have my first British guest, so I want to make sure he feels quite at home with a cup of tea. But as far as the British culture goes, what I do know is one of the greatest navies in the world. As a U.S. Navy show, obviously I gotta say U.S. Navy number one. But what the British fleet has that we don't, they have bars on their aircraft carriers, and the sailors can actually get a drink. And so I know a lot of sailors stationed on the ships over here in America, whenever the British ships are visiting, they all go take a visit to get a couple of drinks with the British sailors and catch up. But yeah, I am here with Steve Wright. He is an awesome guy. If you haven't caught our other episodes together on his show and his platforms, those are going to be in the description below, so be sure to check those out. But Steve, how you doing, man? I know it's a little bit
Fantastic.
later in the day over there.
Yeah, thank you, and a nod. Thank you for the nod about the cup of tea because I'm probably due one right now, and also kudos to you. For those that are listening, they won't get it, but I'm actually
Right,
wearing a sporty hat like Mr. Whiskey
right.
does. So that's out of my deep respect,
Thank you. Tell us
and
the history of it, actually. Where did you
I
get such
there's
a fine dapper hat?
There is no history other than actually it was bought on a trip to Oklahoma. It was in a town, Salem, I think I bought it in,
Hmm.
out in the Midwest, out with some friends that co-workers of mine at the time, and we went into a millinery, proper hat shop, proper
Right.
hat shop,
Proper.
and there were lots of stuff in there, and I was tempted to get one, and sort of found one that sort of fit me, and I like the style. So I don't get many times to wear it, but when I
Right.
do, it
I-
always brings up comments. So
Right.
that's very
Right.
cool.
Honestly, Steve, I could see you sporting a black feather on the one side, or maybe you could get a set of different color feathers for different occasions. Like
Uh,
you could
y-
get a purple one, a green
mm,
one. I mean, I could see a feather. I could see you sporting a feather.
that's very true. Yeah, it probably does have the band probably does have space for
Yeah.
a little accessorizing,
Well, if
but
the band's on the outside, you could always get different bands too. You can always
mm,
customize and swap those out for different
check
occasions too.
check you out up in my game already, man. I've been on.
Yeah. Well, we know
No,
if you're gonna hide the beautiful head of hair you have, you might as well do it
what?
with quite the
I am totally bald underneath it, you know.
Yeah,
That's I
I had a joke ready for you back when I was on the Real Connect, but I said, you know what? He's hosting. It's my first day meeting him, so I can't call out the baldness yet. But in a future episode, I will do it. And now that you're on my show,
oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do it. So
No, you go
all in good sport, of course.
you go for it. I mean, I'm bald on my head, but my chin has got a handsome
Very
little
nice.
goatee and mustache, which you're missing right now. So,
Yeah,
we've swapped places.
I am missing it in all the senses. I miss it and I am missing it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So yeah, but thanks for having me on your show. It's a real privilege to have a chat with you in your space and on your format. And yeah, I'm excited to where it's going to go. I've got no real agenda. Like you said, I'm from the
Right,
UK. I'm not military. I don't have a military background, but I have spent a number of years, as we've talked before, in
right.
San Diego and lived out there for about 15 years or so. And you can't avoid being around the impact, the influence, if you like, of the military services, particularly Navy, Marines,
Right.
and really enjoyed it. I loved it. It gave the place character, and it's a beautiful part of the world. I do miss it from time to time.
And it's already such a melting pot, California, especially over on the coast over there. So that's it, the military, which is a huge melting pot, and then you got all of that. But yeah, like you said, it's hard to go over there, and I have been friends with women before who lived over there, and they're on the dating apps, and it's like, oh, this guy, this guy, they're all military. It's one of those areas like I've talked about on my show before, certain areas that are prominent and known for military bases. Sometimes they'll have bars where the women will just walk up to you and say, "What rank are you?" It's like
Wow.
it's quite the town to live in. But yeah, Steve, I kind of mentioned Real Connect and that you have some platforms. So why don't you tell us about that? I know you're a big Facebook guru. I'll deem you. I'll label you. I don't know if you consider yourself a Facebook guru, if you're a Facebook overlord. What would you call yourself?
Well, that's flattering. Yeah, the real connect was one of the sort of meet and greet events that I run on a Facebook group. I started a Facebook group recently, probably the last 2.5 months or so. And
Mm.
although I've been on Facebook for forever, sending pictures of the babies and the family from around the world and stuff, really pivoted recently into using it for a platform specifically to promote sort of what my purpose is in terms of coaching, personal development, and turning managers into leaders. And so to that end, my personal page and also my Facebook group are really geared towards that project or that program, the managers who lead. So the Facebook group is called the Managers Who Lead, and also I've got a presence on LinkedIn to that end as well. Again, speaking to that personal development coaching space, which is something that with quite a long career in IT, which has been always about around the technology, it became very apparent that the people matter. The people matter more than the technology. They make the technology worthwhile, and
Mm.
so pivoted into a more coaching career, coaching space has been really it's been good for me in the
Right.
time of life that I'm in, and it's been good because it's opened up so many more contacts and people around the world, such as yourself,
Well,
that have got a platform that are
thank
trying
you.
to make
Thank you.
something trying to make something happen in their space, and that's so important. We need to have vision, and we need to have a vision and a voice. And like you said, what you're doing in your space is really powerful, and that's pretty much what I do. So I'm enjoying it. As I said, I've been around IT for decades, and
Mm.
like I said, this time of my life, it's really important just to kind of be in a place where I can serve and really just lift up people.
Right. What's interesting is you're kind of, I'll say rare in the field because all the transformation and life coaches and all the speakers I talk to, they all kind of have the opposite story. Most of them saw the negative side of leading. They experienced the people didn't matter. The people were less important than the job or whatever. Same with me, right? I had a lot of toxic command climates and leadership where the people didn't matter. The job mattered more. And in the military, right, it's a little more understandable. Sometimes the mission is more important, but there's a lot of times in military where it's the whole military isn't there's not always a mission. There's a
Mm,
bigger mission, there's smaller missions, but there's not always that kind of mission, right? And so there's no excuse for it. And even in the civilian world, I experienced toxic leadership, and there's a lot of changes going on in the world and a lot of changes in leadership. But if I'm understanding you correctly, you saw the good side of leadership and you want to spread that because you're saying you saw that, and maybe it wasn't the leadership, but like you said, you saw that the people were more important. And so you're like, well, if we work on people, if we improve the people, then everything else is going to follow. And that's
yeah.
a great mindset to have.
Yeah, and that some of that is informed by the dangers and hazards and problems that people have been put into. So it is, when you see a problem, there's two ways you can deal with a problem. You can see the problem and justify why it's a problem, and then just kind of entrench yourself in that position that it's a problem. Or you can see a problem and then pivot to looking for the solution to the problem. And
Right.
then that sort of, it doesn't diminish the presence of the problem, but it gets your focus on the solution.
Right.
And sometimes we like ease. We like things to be easy, and it's so much easier to
We do.
complain about the problem than it is to look for the solution. So, a lot of the stuff that for me, it is really, there is something that's not quite right because often that's what triggers or activates us to take action.
Right.
And then the goal is the action that you take should not be just to exacerbate or dwell on the problem as much as it is to sort of seek a solution. And be careful because sometimes some solutions can actually add to more problems.
Right.
You talk about the military have missions, and then sometimes the mission is big and you need to get it done, and other times it could just be driven by activity. You've got to keep
Right.
a bunch of
First time quality impression,
yeah, yeah,
you don't want
yeah,
to get a solution that creates more problems, like you said, or makes you have to restart all the way over again.
yeah,
And people
yeah,
often do that. But it's
yeah.
funny you said there's two ways we can kind of look at problems, but as the comedian in the group, I'm going to give you a third way. This was trending a couple months ago, and I'll say you could apply it to the problems in your life, which is you can double it and pass it to the next person. The trend was someone would come up to you with ice cream or money and be like, do you want to take what it is now, or you can double it and pass it to the next person. And as funny as it is often true that people will pass the problem on to someone else, and sometimes in a worse situation than when they got it. And
Yeah,
then another thing I couldn't help but think of is you said people want it easy, which is so true, especially
yeah.
the younger generations now with the instant gratification, the low attention span, the not wanting to work hard, which isn't all of them, of course. But because you and I are recording on a Sunday morning, as soon as I heard easy, I couldn't help but think of the song. I'm easy, easy like
Like,
Sunday morning. And,
oh,
and Steve,
that Commodores, baby.
us. I was gonna sing it, but I figured Steve, you're the guest, and I want to give you the honor of singing it.
Oh, I no, I don't have the voice for it right now.
Okay.
I'm actually sound a bit gravelly than I usually sound, but yeah, don't Lionel
It
Richie and
wasn't
the
from drinking
Commodores.
tea last night that has left
I was
indelible
well, it was
marks.
a little
Maybe
it looks
twisted
like
tea.
it looks like tea. It didn't taste like tea, but there you go.
Right.
We'll
Right.
keep it. We'll keep it like that. Although I should have had a cup of tea before I joined the call, but nonetheless,
Right.
that's fine. I've got my water here, so I'm good.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, easy. We do like easy, and whether it's like a Sunday morning or and then passing the buck, kicking the can.
Yeah.
That's something that we, yeah, it's a scary thing to do sometimes because sometimes it's good because you're giving people the opportunity to learn.
Right.
I can have that tendency where I want to fix everything because
Yeah.
I want to own it and it's my duty to do so. And
Yeah.
then not realize that I'm actually preventing some other people from having the opportunity
Mm.
to serve in the way they want to serve. And sometimes kicking the can or passing the buck in that respect is actually a good thing to do because it engenders other people to the mission, to the purpose.
Right.
It's not just about me. Other times it is just you being lazy and you just don't want to do it. And you're now giving people the crap jobs because, you can because you're the boss or because
Right.
so you got to watch that. You got to watch yourself, watch your life and doctrine closely, bro. You know how that goes.
Right. No, I agree with you that, if there's an opportunity to growth, we should foster that. But and always being there too, right? That if it's something they can't handle, that we're going to be there to back them up, But a lot of people want to like drop it off and leave. It's like, see ya, don't bother me about it. Now, Steve, were you a leader in the IT world at any point in your time, or like a manager of a group? Did you mentor people at all while you were working?
Yes, yeah, I did. I mean, I came into IT straight out of college and I majored myself now. But that was back in the late 80s. So I've been in that field for quite a while. A lot of my roles were in in support, customer service, so IT support, which I say that because the focus is on serving the client, serving the customer. So you got to see how technology really helped people get things done and get over the hump.
Right.
You'd walk in as a troubleshooter, and they don't want to see you, but they're glad that you're there because you're
Right. Yeah, I
you
understand
got
that
that.
love-hate
Yeah,
relationship.
you got that mindset, and then it sort of it transformed more into managing resources, because that's where the management comes in terms of
Mm,
IT management. So whether it's servers, services, internet products, then you're managing those resources that you can manage at scale to clients. And it's interesting because you pull back a little bit away from the clients because your services are being scaled. Therefore, your
mm,
touch points with customers are smaller because you've got more customers to serve. And then it pivoted a little bit more from there in terms of managing a team that were delivering services. So I managed at one time in my career, I managed a team that was globally based, three continents, and they were providing
cool.
support services for our software. A US
Mhm.
based company, actually based in San Diego. And I joined them from San Diego and then actually moved back to the UK and was working from the UK with that company. And we had people across the US, Australia, as well as Europe. So that was an opportunity to really the serve the people that were serving the customers, and ensuring that I was managing the resources that made them successful, and then also leading the team in such a way that they can feel that they were
Right.
valued, they were heard, they were appreciated. And those are sort of touch points that, looking back now, I sort of formulate what I'm saying now in terms of what I was doing in the moment when you're in the trenches, kind of dealing with a situation.
Right.
I've got my boss that I need to serve and support, and I've got my team that I need to make sure that they're, on task, we're doing what we need to do, and so on. So that form of leadership is important. I think leaders have to be good followers. If you
Okay.
There's so many references in history, in fiction, in religious literature, in terms of being a good follower endears you to becoming a good leader. It's just a matter of who you're following, and who you're leading. So that's really important in terms of being a good follower. And then just being empathetic. A lot of my roles came from me doing the job as well. So there's a bit of a mentoring as well as a leading component to that. That's not to say that you cannot lead someone in a role that you yourself have not done, it,
Right. Right.
because it's a different skill. And I think sometimes in coaching, for example, I say that because of coaching. The coaching and mentoring are two different things. And
Right.
when you're coaching, you don't necessarily have had to have had the same work experience as the person that you're coaching, the coachee, because you're bringing a different perspective, a holistic view, a 360 viewpoint to helping that person get better. You know, so the sporting analogy is the classic one in terms of the world class coach may not have necessarily had a world class medal themselves,
Mm,
but they are
right.
very acutely skilled in pulling out the best in the people that they're coaching and or the teams that they're coaching. So in that respect, they have a very different skill to the athlete. And in sports, we recognize it. In the work world, coaching in the US is a bit easier. People understand the metaphor of coaching in a professional context. In the UK, it's a little bit more skeptical, I think. I feel that it's
Mm,
only the C level really can adopt it, and
okay.
and people in other ranks don't necessarily lean on coaching. They sometimes think of it as a remedial issue, a remedial solution, as opposed to a performative solution. So in
Okay.
that
That's
respect, if you say
interesting.
you're being coached, it's because you probably did something wrong, and you need to be fixed,
Oh, I get what you're
as opposed
saying.
to as opposed to coaching because you want to, you really want to aspire to the next level, and the company values you and sees the investment in your skill set as
Right.
a value to the business. So interesting mindset. So
It
yes, to
really
answer your
is.
question, yeah.
I was gonna say it really is. I guess there is that stigma where it's like, oh, if you need coaching, if you need training, or if you have someone helping you, it's because you're not good enough on your own or you did something wrong. But, Mike Van Pelt had come on my show from True Man podcast, and he was talking about how even he, as a life coach and a podcaster, and a successful one at that,
Mm,
has podcasting coaches, has life coaches, because he said as a man, it's your duty to always be learning and growing and tapping into all the resources to best take care of you and your family and the people around you, especially as a leader in a community.
mm,
And so I think that negative stigma, I'll say it's negative because it's like, people, it's same with tutoring, right? If you're getting a tutor, it's like, oh,
mm,
well, you're stupid. Well, it's like sometimes we just want to tap into all the resources we have, and learn as much as we can to best perform.
mm,
There's a difference between poor performance and then our best performance, because plenty of
mm,
people can perform, but they're not at their best. And it's because they're not tapping into resources to pull out, like you said, sometimes we can't even pull out our own potential. It has to be
mm,
someone else. And so speaking of the coaching, there's a lot of different life coaches in life for different things, right? Like I said, there's coaches just for podcasting, for voice acting, for, combating addiction, for family, for relationships, all these different assets. So what do you specifically focus on? Is it just anything going on in your clients' lives that you can help them with, or is it specifically on leading and managing, or it's like certain aspects of their life?
mm. That's a good question. And just before I answer, I just want to come back to what your guest was saying in terms of being the best you can be, and so being the best man you can be to serve and lead
Right,
in your community. And I would go further. That doesn't preclude anybody growing
right.
themselves in terms of women leading their households and really serving their families, communities, serving their workplaces. So I think that is a human aspiration. Once we stop focusing on the problem, because if someone says, "Why are you're getting a tutor because you're stupid," quote unquote,
Right.
then they're focused on the problem as opposed to recognizing that you're getting a tutor because you want to get a better grade, which is the solution, all right, or the goal, the
Mm,
aspiration.
right.
So, and that ties into answering your question in terms of where I see my focus is. I tend to I tend to have empathy in the spaces that I've got experience in, and that would be in that sort of managerial business space where people I've identified themselves as a someone in charge of people in some capacity, and they want to do that better, and they want to do that with understanding, with empathy, being conscious in terms of their leadership skills, and not necessarily C-suite. I mean, it tends to be that all the top leaders can walk around and profess all of their coaches, and coaches can always advertise their high ticket fees because they're dealing with people at the top of the industry or top of the organization. My heart lies with that middle manager, either you're a VP or a director of a business, and you have direct reports above you, and you have peers at your level, and you probably have subordinates, people that report to you. And in that space, there's a lot of moving parts. And sometimes the moving parts are how you deal with the things around you. And sometimes the moving parts are how you deal with the things inside you. And
Mm,
to that end, the things inside you are tend to be universal.
right.
If you come to work, you have a mindset that, or the company has a mindset that says that You leave your problems at the door and you come in and do your 8 hours and get your
Right.
stuff done. Meet the goals, get the numbers, and we'll exchange your effort for this salary, and
Mm.
we'll part company, and that's all well and good. And that in the old days that would work, back in the old human resources days when people were human
Right.
capital. We almost called that back in the day. You were a widget maker, and that kind of worked.
Right.
Today's workplace, and not even COVID, because I think it was a pre-COVID movement. It was just the younger people were trying to work out why they should work and who they should work for. And they were
Right.
looking at values and qualities of companies and
Yeah.
organizations and things like that. So that was important information. Plus, the nature of work. Internet meant that you didn't have to be where the work was, which means that, like, we're having this call, and we're 7 hours time zones apart. So it meant that people it made it harder to determine where you were when you were working. And that means that you can't not bring your stuff to work. If you got to drop a kid off, if you got to take a doctor's appointment, if you got to go see a recital or a sports game, there are things that will impact the way you feel about your work if it impacts on your life.
Right.
So it's important for us to ensure that this work-life balance is is a is a mirage, because I don't think it works that way. Assuming that it's going to be like a seesaw that you have to keep in perfect balance is not the way it works. It's always
Right.
moving. It's in flux. The balance is that it's moving, and so that respect means that you can walk into your job and say, I'm running late. I've got to get out early. I'll get the stuff done, or I'll pick it up later. And having that sort of flexibility, you come in, God forbid you have an argument with your partner, spouse, person that's important to you, and you walk into a meeting, and you can't help but carry some of that stuff into the meeting.
Right.
And you're doing all you can to suppress the feelings that you came into the meeting with, alongside the feelings that you have with a subordinate or a boss that is activating the same emotions that you had at home
Right.
with your
Right.
partner. So all of this comes into play. So the long answer to a very short question is that there's an element of the mechanics in the workplace, and in that context of work, which I can relate to. And there's also the mechanics of the human experience in terms of how you deal with understanding your emotion, understanding your sort of your psychology, understanding sort of how we function, and how best we function, the importance of communication, and the importance of empathy and understanding one another, and then having tools that can help you along the way to just kind of be a better person. And maybe some dating advice, Mr. Whiskey, too. If you want
Hmm.
to catch that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I
now that
can.
now that you've got no beard and mustache, we have to just shift that profile a little bit.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I actually have some questions for you off mic.
Go
I
for it.
think I was friend zoned the other day, and she said it was because she is the same age as Steve Wright. She wouldn't tell me her age. She just goes, "I'm the same exact age as Steve Wright, give or take 5 to 7 hours." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how old Steve Wright is," and you know, um, but anyway, and that's not a joke. That actually happened. I think it happened on my show or her show, if not both. But anyway,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen,
Let me
what I
just say
wanted to
that.
say.
And I'm just going to jump in there real quick. The lady that you're referring to is an amazing lady, and it's interesting when you meet someone and you say, "Oh, when's your birth?" My birthday's this month, and they go, "Oh, mine's the same month." And then they go, "Well, what day is it in the month?" And then you say the day in the month, and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, wow, we got the same day." And then you go, "Well, what year were you born?" And then you realize that you got the same year, and you can't help but go down to, like, what time of the day were you born?
Right, right.
So
In
to meet
fact,
someone in
this,
the world that is that close, they were actually
yeah,
on the earth. We were on the earth hours from each other, is nice.
to the point that y'all could have been swapped at birth. And that would have been quite the story.
Well, she's
Steve
a
Wright and the woman we're talking about don't exactly look the same
you
for a
gotta
couple of reasons. But it's funny for those of you who caught last week's episode, as in the week prior to this episode, she just told the same exact story you told in almost the same exact fashion. So that's hilarious. So,
we're
ladies and
birth
gentlemen, you're
twins.
meeting the birthday twins from other mothers. But yeah, anyway,
Very different
that
mothers.
aside, I was gonna say you bring up a great point, Steve, which is almost like the workplaces nowadays are kind of being forced to be flexible because it's at the point where so many people are working from home, so many opportunities for remote work are available that if workplaces aren't offering flexibility, they're going to lose their employees. Because why would I work for a company that's not going to be human and say, hey, you were running late, this or that, especially when you're still getting the work done, when I could go work from home, making maybe the same, maybe more, maybe less. And so I agree, it's and when you said the morals thing, that's a huge thing. I remember when I was in high school, we actually had a thing where we had to research the morals of companies. And I remember the one company I researched wasn't treating employees right and they lost. There was a huge movement against them. Nowadays everyone's suing for everything. So if you're a
Mm,
company and you're not treating your employees right, like that you said human capital, and now we're human beings again. As funny as that is, that's kind of how it is, where it's like the work-life balance is being pushed more and more because companies weren't keeping work-life balance. They just weren't flexible enough. Work was always more important. And I've had a lot of military guys on the show complain about not being able to achieve work-life balance in the military because it's different. The
mm,
military is you are showing up to work regardless,
mm,
otherwise, like as my friend said, there's going to be a man at your door knocking at 3 a.m. So, but like you said, having the weekends, having, you know, every time I go to the gym, I always complain because it's always packed. I'm like, who are all these people? Like, why don't they have jobs? And then, my gym partner will always say they do. They just work from home. They have flexible hours. I was like, what happened to the 9 to 5? Dolly Parton wrote that song for nothing? Come on, working 9 to 5. What happened to that? And it annoys me as someone who works from home and is trying to take advantage of going to the gym during non-traditional hours, and the road is packed no matter what time of day. I
yeah,
said, why aren't these people at work? What is this, a lunch break, a 5 hour lunch break, any time of the day? And it's also just a point of the population in America is getting to the point where there's always someone who has a day off the same day as you. But yeah, the company morals and why should I work for you? Really, companies don't have much to offer nowadays because there's competition everywhere, right? There's money being offered everywhere. So you have to
yeah,
offer more than that. You have to offer a lot of good benefits. You have to offer we're a family and we mean it. Like you said, that the empathy.
yeah,
And another thing you addressed is leading peers of the same level. That is
mm,
one of the most difficult things in the military because one, you're always put in a position of leadership as someone fresh out of high school sometimes. Sometimes you're
wow,
only 18, 19, or 20, and you're leading people older than you or people who have been in longer than you. Because, like you said, it's not based on job skills. When you talk about being in a position and not having all the skills or having
mm,
lived it, right? Like your sport example, sometimes in the military, it's a matter of numbers. Hey, we need someone to fill this spot, or hey,
wow,
because you score slightly higher on this or that, now you're going to be in this position that has nothing to do with the score you got on the test, or
mm,
because well, there's a lot of favoritism rank ups in the
yeah,
military. But one of the things I found the most difficult is when you're in those less official positions of leadership that they have among small groups in the military, such as class leader or
mm,
division leader or this and that. Your peers don't want to listen to you because you're working together, living together too, which is a huge
mm,
thing.
mm,
There's no part of respect is the privacy that you have between yourself and the people you're leading, which you
mm,
have in the working world. It's harder when you're a military guy or gal and they're like, well, we went out to that port call where you got drunk and you were with a lady boy, like they hold that stuff over you, like it
oh
happens.
yes,
I'm not talking from personal experience, by the way, but I have been in those leadership positions before where it's like, how do you lead a bunch of other 18, 19, 20-year-olds who just want to goof off in the military, who are also dealing with so much at home as
Mm.
well as work. You talk about bringing baggage and the leave work at work, home at home. I
Yeah,
mean, who can
yeah,
honestly do that? And I'm sure I have a bunch of listeners out there saying, I do it, Mr. Whiskey. Well, it's very difficult. It takes a lot of mental discipline, accountability, and practice to truly leave at work and home at home. I
yeah.
mean, how can you exist not thinking about one or the other? Especially like you said, with the at home. I've had meetings before. I've had episodes where, like right now, I was just fighting with my dad because he's talking about Satanism and I'm a preacher on my other show and we're arguing and
Mm.
I get on the show, but it's like, luckily I'm able to get in the mindset. I have
Yeah.
a funny guest here to crack some jokes and
There you
so
go.
it's a good time. But and actually, one of the people I admire the most, Kimberly Spencer, she just posted yesterday about how she landed one of her biggest clients, and right before that meeting, she had a miscarriage. And how,
Oh,
imagine being a mother going into a meeting, just having a miscarriage. That's one of the
wow.
most painful and difficult moments for a woman.
Mm.
And she was talking about how she had to, put on the front. And so props to that, to one of the things with the remote work is it's a lot easier to not bring that baggage in because you're just hopping on the meeting and then you're at home. You don't have to commute. You don't have to be stuck at the workplace all day.
Mm.
But people do need to still. It's also creating that unhealthy habit of being able to bring baggage to work without
That,
consequences that are very prevalent and
yeah.
prominent. But there's, like you said, those background consequences, especially if it's reflecting into the way you're treating people. I actually laughed when you were like, your boss treats you just like your significant other. And so
Yeah.
it's like if, especially if you have a narcissistic boss and you're dealing with your narcissistic partner, and then you get to work, you're like, not this again, not this again. You know,
You
um,
know,
Steve, can you share with us? You talked about a lot of good leadership qualities and stuff, but have you had any bad leaders in your life? I know
oh,
before you were working at IT, I'm sure you worked some, jobs here and there. I mean, can you tell us about any funny or super serious stories about like bad leadership that really like you were like,
yeah.
this is not it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I've had great and not so great experiences within my IT career and a couple of summer jobs and holiday jobs that have been funny in the sense that I wasn't the one that was vindictive, but other people have. But I wanted to come back to something you started by asking, how to manage peers,
Mm,
and
right.
especially your example in the military where you can literally be a couple of point grades different from somebody and now you're leading them, or you could be
Yeah.
in your late
Younger
teens
than
leading people that are that have got years on you in that space. And it made me think, I blame schools, man. I blame the school prefect, you're
mm,
the hall monitor, the people who used to be given a badge, man. You
yeah.
it's like the teacher deputizes some kid in the class, and then all of a sudden the person with the badge is so
Positional
busy.
authority.
Yeah, so busy showing off the badge to make sure that they let everyone know that they've got this role. And it's funny because we don't do things we as humans we tend not to do things with a bad intention, but
Mm,
but often the things we do can end up with a bad consequence.
right.
So, the teacher says, "Oh, little Susie in the corner, she's so nice and well behaved. I like her, because she's well behaved. I'm going to make her in. I'm gonna reward her by making her
Right.
the class monitor. So
May
she'll
not have
be.
any leadership qualities at all, though.
You've not taught her anything except the fact that you like her." And then now all of a sudden, Susie now, if she likes the teacher or looks up to the teacher more than she looks out for her peers, she will look up to the teacher, take the new role, and
Iron
then
Fist.
lord it over her friends. And all her friends are like, Susie's such a whatever, they fill in the
Kiss
blank.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. Kiss up. There you go. That's a good way of putting it.
Teacher's pet.
She's a kisser, exactly. And it
TOS.
doesn't engender Susie for her role. The
Right.
teacher hasn't prepared her for that kind of responsibility. and she wasn't picked out of the group to lead the group.
Mm,
So in the workplace, a lot of times, sort of the best leadership is usually ascribed leadership, where you people get together and go, we need to do something, and we need someone to be in charge of X. Let's all agree that Steve is in charge of X. And then, well, Steve, are you okay with that? Well, yeah, I'm okay if you're okay. Yes, we're okay. And now it's ascribed leadership, as
mm,
opposed to walking into a room and sort of saying, okay, everybody sit down. I'm the leader. This is what we're going to do. And they go, well, who are you? Right. And then you've got to spend all your time justifying who you are. And every time you justify who you are, they resent you more because you've not
mm.
told them, you've not come from them, you know.
Right.
Um, so all of that to say, to answer your question, is like, yes, bad leadership comes from that place where it's not been ascribed, where you
Mm.
rock up and someone says, I've been in this role 20 years. I know the industry inside out. I know what's good for the industry and I know what's good for you. And this is where we're going to do it.
Don't get me
And you
started
go,
on that. I have
well,
a lot of
actually,
experience with I hate the concept, and it's a much more old-fashioned concept that time on job equivalates to leadership qualities. It doesn't,
mm,
or that especially I've had egotistical kind of leaders who were like, well, I've seen everything. There's nothing under the sun that I haven't seen. I was here before you were even made. I was here 30 years before you were even made.
mm,
And because I actually had incidents at this acid plant I was working at where there were certain physical malfunctions. And the boss was like, well, that hasn't happened in 30 years. So I know it's not happening today. You're lying. And I was like, why would I lie about this thing not working or this not? And it was fine. I took photographic evidence to him, and he just like shifted the direction to somewhere else to
yeah,
as one does. It's like, well, why didn't you fix it then? And it's like, well, hold on. I would like the acknowledgement that
uh,
in after 30 years, there are still things that can happen that people
right,
haven't seen before. Well, as soon as you were like, I've been here for so long, so I know what's good for you. It's like, well, you haven't known me for that long,
right,
especially when it's the new people, right? Or like you said, someone just showing up, and it's like, well, I know everything, right? It's knowing the people is so much more important than knowing the job because, like you said, it's the people that create the beauty with the technology or whatever field you're
yeah,
in, right? So if you can get the people to work right, you can get the stuff to work right. But a
yeah,
lot of the old fashioned mindset is we want this, we're focused on the stuff, on the issue. People are solutions. Not always, some people are problems. But
yeah,
typically it's like the company's goals and the tech is the issue, right? In IT, the tech not working is the issue. The people are the solution. The people are the ones who
mm,
can fix it, who
mm,
have the access to the resources to fix it.
yeah. And there's so many, even that story with you in the plant where you're all part of one system. And someone says, I've not seen a problem in 30 years. And then you're closest to the issue and you actually see
Right.
an issue. And you do the correct thing in terms of reporting the issue to the system so that the system can so that the system can adapt and fix it. The analogy is like the body. If you stub your toe, your brain's going to know because it's going to go, ouch,
Oh,
right?
it's gonna know.
The toe is important because the toe reported back to the brain or the rest of the body that it just hurt itself. And it's for the body to now respond to that. You move away from the pain or you fix the issue, you assess the damage and you mitigate it or you fix it.
Punch
The
the
same
desk,
in a
curse at it.
say it again?
I said you punch the desk and curse at it. That's the
Yes, yeah. And
that's
if
fixing
that's
the
part of
issue.
yeah, that's fine. And you know what, sometimes, and the thing is, the analogy kind of works. Sometimes you do have to cuss and then people here around you go, what just happened? Something in that system is not
Say
working because
so,
they just
some
cussed.
jerk let this desk out in the open for me to stub my toe on. And then usually
So
you're the guy who put the desk in the middle of the room.
so the response in a workplace, it should be thank you for reporting it. right? Thank you for reporting it. It's a system that affects us all. I've been here 30 years. You've been here 5 minutes. You found something. It's valuable. It's valid.
Right.
Let's deal with it. Not have an ego position, sort of saying, it's
Right.
like the brain saying to the toe, who are you to interrupt
Right.
me?
Or saying we
I'm
didn't
doing
stub our
something.
toe. You're making that
Yeah,
up. I'd be like, why
yeah.
would I make that? It hurts. Like, why would I make this up? Like my toe is like, it looks like it's gonna face the wrong way if I if I don't fix it. You
Yeah,
know,
so deal
like
with it.
the
So
denial, which I don't
yes.
understand. That it's like why I have no, like you said, we're all part of a system, right? I have no reason to sabotage us, to lie to us, to hurt
Right.
us, right? If I'm reporting something, it's because I think is important to the system.
Yep.
And so I don't get that denial other than well, I don't want to sound wrong because I said I know everything, I've seen everything, and I haven't seen this. Well,
Mm,
that's just like, that's why you shouldn't have put yourself to begin with in a position of I know everything, I've seen everything. No one on this earth has known or seen everything. No
mm,
one at a company has known or seen everything.
mm.
So the issue is people even putting them in that position to begin with. As a leader, you need to be humble and relatable, So that way there's no reason to deny anything.
Yeah. Our language, and it's interesting because our language sets us up. It opens the door that we walk through and then pin ourselves into the box. So
Mm,
if you open up the door of I know everything, and then you walk through that door, you're now pigeonholed. You're caught, right?
right,
The trap worked because now anyone coming to you with something has to come up against what
right,
you said as you knowing everything.
right.
So sometimes you've got to be careful in what you say because what you say ends up becoming what you believe, and that literally can pigeonhole you, and your ego gets in the way, and all of a sudden you're now
Mhm.
trying to justify your existence against the system. Something what someone reported an issue. Same in IT. I mean, IT is in some respects, IT is kind of nice because it can be very black and white. It's very binary. Something's on or off, and it's not working or it is working. And often, if you ask enough questions, you can, you've got processes to get to a root cause of something.
Right.
At the same time, as much as that is very much a science, a lot of technology today is very artistic. It is open to interpretation. It is open to nuance. It is open to being aware of the surroundings. So
Mm,
you don't have a fixed position. It's not always on and it's not always off. And the bad places I've worked in IT have had very fixed positions, very fixed mindsets, and to the point where it was at the expense of people that had good intentions, joined organizations for good reasons, and found very quickly that they couldn't grow, they couldn't express themselves, they couldn't add the value that they thought they could do,
mm.
and they quickly left. And if you're churning people in your organization, then you got a bigger that's your biggest problem of being in business. I can't think of any problem bigger than that. You could sort of say, well, I've got no sales. Well, even that can be fixed. If you've got no sales, then that might question the business that you're in. But if you're turning people, you've got people in because you've sold someone the job and they've come in the door, and then you've churned them prematurely. They've left too quickly. That means that you've
Yep.
not looked after that person, which means you're probably not looking after your customers and you're probably not looking after your product or services. Because if you're not looking after your people, then the whole equation is going to fall. It's a house of cards. You can't keep that. You can't keep that going.
Right. It's funny actually talking about the turnover rate. I worked at this one restaurant where we would get new people and lose people every single week. And when I first applied for the job and did the interview, what the leader did was just basically stereotype and crap talk teenage women. And having just got out of the military, he's talking about them being lazy and not wanting to work. And I'm like, okay, I could see that, right? It's waitering at a restaurant.
Mm,
What I realized though by the end of it is that there is a turnover rate that's pretty high in the restaurant industry, but to have new people come and leave every single week, there's got to be a bigger issue, such as the boss having various family members show up whenever they want, take the best tables, take the money, leave the tables dirty, right?
Yeah.
Which was one of the biggest issues, right? Other than the founder and owner of the restaurant constantly micromanaging everyone, including the managers, manually changing their hours to
Mm,
not have to pay them like they would work 70 hours a week and he would go in and change them to like 30, and also never paying us our base money. I actually reported it all to the Georgia Revenue Department or whoever, like the labor service, and they never got back to me. And I was like, okay.
mm,
So I reported this guy is not paying any of us, is changing all of our hours. There's physical proof of it. I have a long list of people who were affected by this. But I guess it's not important. I guess I just won't get paid for all the hours I work. But yeah, it was awful, you know. And I took that experience. I was like, okay, so if the boss is really talking bad about all these people who are coming in and out. It requires a little deeper look at, well, why are these people all coming in and out? Because
mm.
you can't just say, well, it's because young women don't want to work, right? Because there are
Right.
plenty of young women out there who do want to work. So what's the real reason? Like you said, if they're turning people in and out, if they're leaving prematurely, people go into a job typically, even a part-time job, like we're going to do this for a while.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing people get out within a certain amount of weeks or months, it's like you got to question that. And yeah, I totally agree. So it seems like, and you're talking about the IT world being black and white, it's either on or off. And the first thing I thought was until you get that piece of machine that's like, well, it's on, it's off, it's kind of like won't make up its mind. Troubleshooting can be fun. It can be quite
Yeah.
the difficult thing. I've done some troubleshooting on circuit cards and boards, and
Mm,
it's like, okay, we're just gonna test current flow through every single possible point
yeah.
we can because we cannot find we there I can't remember what it was, but this one light would not turn off. But
Right.
it's like there's no power going to it. Like what's going on? And we can't find any shorts or any grounds.
Right.
Like what's and it's like technology
It's
it can be a puzzle. And puzzles
yeah.
can be fun unless you're missing one piece and you can't find it, then it's not fun. I'm
And
sure you've had some adventures
yeah, and
in.
like I said, that's the artistry. That's the artistry of our space as well, because um, it isn't. It's things aren't that black and white, and there's nuance. And like I said, in that, I mean, my toughest, difficultest areas of work have not been as bad as what you just outlined in terms of the
Oh,
restaurant
okay.
trade. And some trades are more susceptible to, higher turnover. And it's not
Right, of
even a
course.
matter of skill level because you could have high paying consultants turn and churn in their work, and that could be a factor in terms of their longevity and their success. And I say that because it's like, you know, uh, yeah, certain industries have that propensity to be more or less volatile, and restaurants are one of them. But it's the
Yeah.
same thing. The thing is, people walked in the door to get the job, and the irony is that as quick as they turn over, is as quick as people fill in the vacancies, at least walking in to be interviewed. The sad thing is that it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to keep people around. You just show them that you care.
Right. Well, you know what? His mindset is something that I want to point out that we kind of haven't touched on, which is seeing your people as irreplaceable. But his
Mm,
mindset, he said to me, you know how many college kids are out there wanting to work at a restaurant right now? Left and right. I don't
mm,
care who stays or who goes. I will fill in the spot. When you're working for someone who sees you as if he sees other people as replaceable, guess what that makes you? You're not special. You're no exception,
yeah,
right? He's gonna feel the same way about you no matter how long you've been at the restaurant, especially when he's
yeah,
screaming at his sister saying he'll fire her even. But the point being is you want to work for a company, like you said, that cares about you. And how do they care? they see you as a valuable asset that they're not willing to just throw away. But I want to backtrack real quick and just for everyone who's listening, when I talked about his IT days and adventures, Steve got so excited he threw his earbuds out at me. Like he jumped in his seat. He like had a jolt of energy. He was like, "Woo!" Let me tell you, Mr. Whiskey, the days of the IT like brought him back to the
Oh yeah,
glory days of
circuit boards, baby,
crouching
circuit
down with
boards.
bad knees, and he's got like flukes in hand, and
Fluke.
that'll do it to you. People don't know the IT industries. There's a lot of bending down and crouching down that it really destroys the kneecaps, right, Steve?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. My
Injuries
first
aren't
job, I
work
walked.
related.
Yeah, my first job, I walked around with a scope, man. I like you said, you mentioned flukes. Yeah, fluke meters and scopes, man. We were looking for test points and
Right.
checking the sine waves and making sure you had the right frequencies and things. It was crazy. And it's interesting because it built a sense of artistry and mastery because you were working,
Mm.
data was back then, data was so big you can see it. I actually I soldered out circuit chips.
Right.
Nowadays, I wouldn't even touch anything. I wouldn't even touch a physical piece of equipment to fix an issue because it's all logic now. A lot of that technology is logic. It's stuck in a data center somewhere, and you switch out an entire board, physical board, which represents 20, 30, 40, 50 virtual machines running all sorts of things at that kind of logical level and not a physical level, which can make you feel kind of disheartened because you're not there's no there's IT has lots of roles where you can't show what you've done for your day's work. It's not like
Mm.
you built a cabinet. You
Like
were
the job satisfaction is
Yes,
like,
you were someone who actually crafted something that exists in the world, and someone goes, "Ooh, who made that? That's beautiful." You don't get that feel in a lot of IT roles. I'm not
wow.
saying there isn't some, because there is some artistry. Like I said, there's artistry and craftsmanship in coding well, in building good products and good services. There is an artistry to it. And I think the companies that we endear ourselves to have really built themselves, the brand and that artistry. Apple comes to mind as a top of mind, right, just off the bat. But coming back to your your restaurant owner sort of saying, I've got a conveyor belt of youngsters that are just going to come through and I can churn them as much as I like. His
Right.
business model is obviously based on accepting that churn. My argument is that it's actually more work
Inefficient.
to deal
Yeah.
with the churn than it is to actually look after the people. We think it's harder work to look after people. That's why we often don't do it. When we ask someone how they're doing, in the corridor at work, we ask that question expecting them to say fine and then move on. We don't want them to say, actually, I feel like crap. And, I've just been to the doctors and I'm waiting for a diagnosis. Or, my partner was out late last night again. I don't know what's going on. We don't want to
Mm.
hear that side of the answer.
Right.
We want to just hear fine and then go on with that day, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to be prepared for that, to stop for 5 minutes and look them in the eye, and then wait for them to say what they're going to say. That
Right.
goes a lot further than waiting for, going through the corridor with everyone saying fine to you. So that's
Right.
important.
Right. And now, something I want to ask, quite a while ago, which was, how did you end up in San Diego? Kind of, we've talked a lot about your IT life, the adventures of Steve Wright, the IT man, but what about who was Steve Wright before the IT world? He was in the UK, he was in San Diego, he was running around doing what? Drinking whiskey, maybe,
Yeah, I started a way back. My parents are Jamaican. They came to the UK. Actually, I had my mum. My mum was one of my podcast guests on my
Really?
show, and it was a blast. I would advise anyone who's aspiring to podcast, go. interview your parent, interview a loved one, interview someone that is important in your life.
Depending on what your podcast is about. If it's about like kinky secrets, maybe you don't want to interview your parents. You're like, so keep that in mind. If it's about like health
Well,
and wellness, sometimes we don't want to know everything about our parents. Or it's like if the
it,
podcast is what life decision would I have made different, you might not want to interview your parents because they might say, you, Junior, you're, yeah. If I could have had a life about you, Junior, it would have been a better time. I would have been a Rockefeller leg swinging dancer, So but you destroyed my
well,
body. So
I guess there are going to be some areas that you wouldn't want to explore, like the kinky secrets. That they might be yours or your parents. I don't know which one's going to be
right.
worse,
You might
actually.
want to explore them. Depends on your personality. If you're hosting that kind of show, you might want to know. You might want to know what's genetic and what's not.
That's very true too, but yeah. So like I said, parents Jamaican, born and raised in the UK, and oh, since we're doing the full disclosure, it's a long format podcast. So,
Yeah.
I went out to I first left the UK at 18. I spent a year in Africa, in Zambia, and
Oh wow.
that informed my worldview much more than I even give it value for. It was a great adventure. It was a time between finishing high school and going into college, and sort of took a
Okay.
year out and did that, and that, the chance to travel through 6 countries in Southern Africa. And this was right, I went through South Africa, and this was still apartheid days. I was turned out of shops. I couldn't buy things. I couldn't attend certain places because of
Mm.
my color, and I couldn't eat or buy things or in shops because of race. And that was in it. That was an eye opener for a teenager. And then fast forward, my dad has always been in technology, and it was one of those things that bond us together. He was always fixing things, fixing the TV, fixing the fridge, fixing the washing
Mm.
machine. Had circuit boards out, and he loved tinkering and making things work. And that really lit the bug under me to kind of move into that
Okay.
space. And went to college and did that, and then moved into the workplace. And I had worked for some companies, ended up being self-employed. I was self-employed ran my own sort of PC consultancy pre Y2K, which was kind of an interesting time because everyone was worried about the sky
Right.
falling and the world closing at with 00 and now we're 2024. It's crazy.
Right.
And so did that for a while. Moved into, I actually was exposed to personal development through my, it was that thing you want to do better as for yourself. I'm self-employed, so there's no boss to send me on a course. I'm the boss, and I send me on a course. So I
Oh
ended
yeah.
up yeah, exploring a lot more of the personal development space for me to grow and develop. Came across Tony Robbins. Tony came to the UK in '93. I met him and was at his program at '93, and sort of formed a relationship with some of the people in his team and kept in touch with them. And 3 years later, I was actually in San Diego that Christmas, and spent my first Christmas with Tony and his family in La Jolla in San Diego. It was beautiful.
Oh
I
wow.
worked in his offices there and just got exposed to the power of personal development and some of the business of personal development, because it's a very big business, and Tony runs a large organization. So that got me to the States. That got me to San Diego. I pivoted back into IT because of visa requirements that required me to work in my technical space. But always had the sort of backdrop of personal development. I understand how important that is. I read a lot. I think a lot, and I try and apply that where I see it can work
Right.
for myself and for others. So that got me there. Raised a family. I brought my family across the country, across the continent twice. So we had to go back to the
Mm.
UK for a spell
Mm.
with visa issues causing us to leave the States. And I thought it was going to be 3 months. while we get the visas in place. It ended up being 3 years. I came back to the UK for 3 years.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, in that time, I went back to college and I got a master's degree. And then I was doing a speaking engagement in San Diego as part of my university training, my
Oh, okay.
my certificate, and actually interviewed for a company that I used to work for while I was out there on
Huh.
that trip, and then they sponsored my return. So swings and roundabouts. Life is life. I mean, I say that because life is very. You've got to be curious, man. You've got to stay curious, stay open, because you don't know what door closes and another one opens. And you know, I don't believe in burning bridges. I don't believe in carrying baggage either. Don't
Mm,
carry the bag. Don't carry baggage. But at the same time, don't burn a bridge. So
mm. Interesting.
I
And
answered the
how
question.
and yeah, for the most part, I got
Yeah.
asked, so how and when did you meet the missus? And because you
Oh,
mentioned
that was
family that you're
oh, that
bringing
was
back and forth, so that's the juicy drama we want to hear.
that was a nightclub. That was a nightclub
Oh,
in
were you
London.
wearing a fedora?
I wasn't. What I was I wearing? I wasn't. I can't remember what I was wearing. It was a
She
Friday
probably
night.
remembers more than you do, you know.
It
She'll
was
be
a
like, he
Friday
was
night.
so
We just got
handsome, he
paid.
was in a full suit.
We just got paid, like the song says. Friday night, just got paid, and we were four we
Just
were
enough
four
to
guys.
get all up in this club.
We were four guys. Just a couple of my buddies got together. We were cruising the streets of London. It was bizarre. It was bizarre.
Wow.
And back then you could drive through London. Nowadays you can't. It's all
Right.
congestionized. You can't. It's all
Yeah.
pedestrianized. You can't drive anywhere
Everyone's
in London.
everyone's working from home or has the day off, it seems. Yeah. It's just everywhere's too busy. I don't want to live off grid, but I'm also like, there's too many people between me and the groceries. It's like go to the grocery
Well,
stores and there was like cart jam between the deli section and the aisles because people couldn't. I don't understand that you got like seven carts all like in a circle, like they're like all trying to go at the same time. So then
yeah.
they're like, all right, we'll let you go, and they move, but then they move in the same way, and it's like that old game of like, which way are you
You're
going?
going.
And I'm like, how can people just, ugh, I'm a
Mm.
complainer. They say, you're not a good sailor if you're not complaining, and it's like, but like you said, the traffic everywhere, even in the grocery store, I've got cart traffic. Yeah, so you're at the nightclub, drinking tea, and
I well, well. Here, full confession here. You heard it here first. Mr. Whiskey got this out of me. I wasn't in the club. I was outside the club because the club was turning out. We got there so late. It was closing,
uh,
and I don't know if this. I don't know if this
fashionably
tip.
late.
I don't know if this tip works nowadays because I haven't been in that space where I've been trawling clubs.
Yeah, it's been
But
a few years.
sometimes being out after someone's had a good night out, it spills out into the street, and it's a great place. It's quieter. You don't have to buy drinks. Everyone's had a drink already,
Right.
and people are still friendly. They've come out with a good energy from the club. So I met my wife then, and I think there's a few friends. They were eating a hamburger. They were out
Hmm.
at a burger spot, and
Hmm.
me and my bestie came up, and my wingman is
Yeah.
best friend to this day, and we started a conversation, and that was how we met. No dating apps, none of that,
Right, right.
none of
Well,
that swiping left or right.
we would call because the younger generations like to speak in terms of video games and stuff. What you're telling us to do is what we would call spawn camping. You're camping and waiting right at the spawn point, and then making your move. Call it spawn camping.
That's
Uh, you
how
know,
that.
so it sounds like your buddy's a good wingman. Have you paid back the favor? Have you been a good wingman in return?
Oh, that's a good question. I
You don't
think
have to answer it if
no,
if
no,
the answer
no.
is no, just
I think no. I think I have. I think what's engendered our friendship over 40 odd years now has been it's important to give each other space and
Mm,
and and connect as if you had just met for the first time or you just met yesterday, whether it was a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. You know, we don't leave it that long before we talk between talking, but whenever we catch up, it's fresh. It's there's no remnants of, oh, you know, woe is me for not hearing from you and all that kind of
right.
stuff. You know, it's important that people are your people hear you out. They don't have to agree with you, but they hear you out. And if you ask them a question, you know, or you ask for their advice, only give it when you're asked. Don't give it when you're not asked. I
Mm,
think that's another key thing with our friendship is that I don't tell him stuff that he doesn't that he hasn't asked me about,
mm,
and that's important because
okay.
you know, because it's too easy to kind of you don't want to shape your friends. Your friends are your friends regardless, not
Okay.
because you shaped
Wow.
them that way. You know,
Wow, Steve came on the
deep,
show,
huh?
gave us, I was gonna say you gave us advice on leadership, on work, on relationships, on friendships, on personal development. You are just a man of all tricks and trades. You gave us advice on all the core aspects of life without having it planned, without even intentionally doing it. Wow. I knew you were gonna give us advice on leadership, but to top it off with the how to pick up people outside of nightclubs and how to keep friendship. That's pretty good.
Well,
Because the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, take the friendship advice first because if you take Steve's advice for the nightclubs and it doesn't work, you're gonna need friends to fall back on. You're gonna need
oh
those
yeah,
good friends by your side. So, and you're also gonna need good friends to go hang outside the nightclub because you don't want to go by yourself hanging outside the nightclub. That might
you
be a
don't
bad
want to do
time.
that.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, it's different times.
Very
Yeah,
much
but
so. Very much so.
it's a great time. But Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. And do you have anything to leave us with? You kind of left us with a lot already. Like I said, all your information is going to be in the description below, and I'll try
Yeah.
to find that. If you send me the episode with your mom in it, we'll put that in the description below.
Oh, fantastic.
He's not asking her weird questions, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to
No,
clarify that. It's just a
no.
wholesome interview where you probably learned a lot that you didn't even realize or know, right? It was like
Yeah.
insightful.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, and I guess sort of the couple of parting things I wanted to, you know, you asked me for parting comments or thoughts.
Or complaints.
One is you know, we talked about you talked about the 30 year job veteran saying that they've in their 30 years of experience
Right.
they've never seen anything like this, so therefore it didn't happen. They missed the trick by cultivating 30 years of curiosity, which means that everything that happens is new. They have a new perspective on things, even though they've been in the industry for so long. It should be a wow moment, not a oh I don't believe you moment. So I've been around. I mean, I said if I've got a friendship of 40 years and I was in college in the 80s, then I'm up in age. So that
Yeah, I'm trying
really
to do the
does.
math. I'm trying to do the
Yeah,
math because
that
my
does.
aspiring celebrity crush won't tell me her age, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna
there you go.
crunch those numbers in the meantime. But
But but yeah, so that being said, I think there is great value. There's great value in mining the wisdom of people around you, and that goes up and down and beside and left and right. It could be
right,
it could be the people that are ahead of you in terms of career, age, life. It could be the people that are following you in terms of, you know,
mm,
younger siblings or friends in that space, and the people that are in your space, you know, that are next to you. We spend too much time assuming that we know what the older people think or the younger people think or
right,
what our friends think, and don't spend enough time actually exploring and sitting in the space that lets them tell you what they think. you know. So me sitting down with my mum was special because it was a predetermined time to sit down and talk to her, like this show, you know, and you don't have an agenda per se. You co-create as you go along, and you trust that you're going to come up with some gold. And this has been great, just talking with you,
Oh,
Mr.
thank you.
Whiskey. So, you know that's going to happen, and where it goes and how it shows up is just being real. We're not sitting there reading from a page or reading from a script. And I hope that comes across, when people sort of watch and listen to this. So definitely take the time, and if you're going to ask people how they're doing, give yourself some time to get the answer. You
Right.
don't assume that you could walk past as you say, "How are you?" because you've not actually given yourself time to listen to the answer. And you've mentioned mental health, and I just want to touch on that
Right.
in terms of our well-being, and I feel your heart for the military in that respect, and the stuff that you do in that space to really showcase well-being. And it doesn't always, you don't have to necessarily be a seasoned, qualified professional, mental health
Right.
professional to help somebody. Goodness sake, if you share a drink or you share a cigarette or you sit down on a porch and have a conversation, you don't know. You're an angel saving someone's life, So I
Right.
definitely believe that that happens, So
I
be open,
agree.
be curious, keeps you young.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, Steve is only 29 and he's done all this, and
He's,
it's
your
all
math
good.
is off, bro.
Yeah, they're like, well, he's young. We can tell he's young at heart, but maybe he
Oh yeah.
hasn't aged. It's funny. I love seeing a lot of military guys will post this picture, and it goes. It's a picture of a man named Josh. He goes, being a mechanic isn't stressful at all. And it says Josh, 25 years old, and he looks like he's in his 60s. And it's like a lot of military members will
Haggard.
share that because there are some military members I've met who they're like, we're the same age, and or they'll be like, I'm 18 or I'm 20 or I'm 25. I'm like, "Whoop, oh my bad, sir. I thought you were wow, I thought you had three kids and one DUI, but looks like you do not.
Just one
And then
DUI.
you'll have those people like they're like, oh well, I'm 32, and you're like, ooh, well you must not really you must have one of those easy jobs in the military because you look you look pretty young. You must put lotion on your skin or something,
Yeah. Well, that's funny because the way you say that now, it's like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yes,
If you if you
yes,
don't look haggard, you're not working, and if you look great, you got an easy job. I mean,
yep, and it's just like. Yeah, it's like if you work hard and you have all calloused hands, men respect you, and then women are like, "Good, don't touch me." But if you get the soft hands, men will punch you in the face, and women will love you. So it's like we got to choose. We're always fighting a battle for approval that we can never win.
yeah,
But as long as
damned
you're
if you
happy with
do.
yourself, right? You know your age, you know your wisdom, you know your work ethic. So that's what matters, and the
Yeah,
good Lord sees it all. So, but yeah,
yeah,
Steve, thanks so much for coming on. And again, if you want to just share with us, I know you got your
yeah.
Facebook groups, and how can people find those and join those? Where are you at on LinkedIn and all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Easiest place is the Facebook group is the Managers Who Lead. The managerswholead.com will get you there. And I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Steve Wright. I put MSC at the end so that it kind of stands out. So Steve Wright, MSC. That's my master's
What
degree.
does that stand for? Is that like some kind of
Masters
special
of
code?
Science. It's a master's degree. It's my
Oh, okay. You had to
yeah.
flex on everyone. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Well, well, yeah.
He's
It's
like, hold
yeah.
on, let me include my degree even where people aren't looking for it, just to make sure they see it.
Well, Steve Wright's a common name. Steve and Wright are common names. So I
That
just,
is okay. That's a fair
yeah,
point.
I had to put something on there just to kind of so they can see it. But yeah, those are the two places where I hang out the most. And like I said, happy to connect and chat. I have a podcast that I do weekly, the One to One Thing. And it's like this, it's conversations, and not necessarily as long a format, but certainly conversations that can inform, enlighten, inspire people to think more about what they do in their work, in their career, in their community, in their faith. Those are all important things. So
Awesome.
love that.
Awesome. Yeah. Like I said, all those will be in the description below as well for y'all to easily find. And I highly encourage y'all, if you do join the Managers Who Lead, to join one of our, not our, his real,
It's ours. You're
or
right.
Zoom is like, I always do the Zoom is like mirrored. So one of
Yeah.
Steve's real connects, I was on there last time and it was a great time. I mean, I was on a couple shows afterward and stuff. It's a great place to connect with like-minded individuals, different minded individuals to grow as well. And
Mm.
sometimes we get a unexpected tour of someone's house full of artwork. There are it's like
She'll
it's
be back.
live, it's real time, human connection. So it's a great time. And so be sure to check out the Facebook group, join that, and share with whoever else you think needs to hear this kind of stuff. We're always looking to grow our platforms and reach as many people as possible. So ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, be sure to share, comment, and share with everyone, whoever needs it, whoever doesn't need it, because we never know what we need or don't need. So,
Yeah.
Steve,
Very
thank you
true.
so much, though. I know
Been a pleasure.
it's time for you to go get your tea, right?
Yeah, oh yes. Oh
Yeah,
yes.
it's tea
And a
time.
biscuit.
Oh, and a biscuit. Okay.
Yeah. Or
My
cookie.
biscuit and your
Cookie.
biscuits are different because I'm no south south I almost said South America. South North America. So, I
Mm,
got a different type of biscuits than you, but
yeah.
I
You
hope you
can't put
enjoy
your
that and
biscuit in
I
the
will
tea.
yeah, I will be seeing you soon for something else. There's always something going on. So, but thank you so much for your time, man.
That's great. We'll see you at the next Real Connect. We got one scheduled next week. I'll let you know when it's out. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.